America was discovered by Christopher Columbus in 1492. The beginnings of American literature consist mainly of letters, diaries, histories, reports, and religious works. To understand these writings, we must look behind to the colonial period. In 1607, America was wilderness to which Englishmen were coming for settlement and exploration. The 6th and 20th day of April recited the land of Virginia we entered in the Bay of Chesapeake directly without any left or hindrance. There we landed and explored a little way, but we could find nothing worth speaking of but fairy meadows and goodly tall trees, with such fresh water running through the woods, as I was almost ravished at the first sight thereof. These words, by a man who sailed with Captain John Smith, typify the beginnings of literature in colonial America. The writings of colonial period reflect America itself, a new known America. Permanent settlement began in Jamestown in 1607, in Plymouth in 1620. During next 100 years, more colonies were founded. The most of the people of colonial America was essentially a struggle to survive, the little to develop the art. These people were occupied in providing the necessities of everyday life. Only evening, when the work was done for the day, was there the time for writing, so the colonists wrote what they felt was necessary or useful. They wrote letters, journals, and diaries, and histories of early settlements. The writings of colonial period reflected the hard pioneer life in which time was not to be wasted. They reflected also the deep religious faith of these early Americans. The religion was a part reflected in every poetry of the period. For reading, colonists turned to the Bible and to the writing. The colonial period is not rich in literature as we think of today. Later writers look back to it for setting for stories. Themes: exploration and settlements. Many early Americans' writing revolved around the theme of exploration and settlement. Account of voyages, colonization efforts, and description of New World were common, as the colonists sought to understand and document their experiences in the familiar land. Religious devotion. Religion played a significant role in the lives of early American colonists, and religious devotion is a prevalent theme in their literature. The colonists, particularly the Puritans, often wrote about the religious beliefs, struggles, and the establishment of religious communities in the New World. Individualism and self reliance. The idea of individualism and self reliance was important to the early settlers. They emphasized the ability of individuals to shape their own destinies and relied on personal strength and hard work to overcome challenges in the new environment. The theme can be seen in the various writings of the time. Nature and wilderness. The early settlers encountered a vast and untamed wilderness in America. The natural landscape and the challenges it presented were often depicted in their writings. Nature was seen as a powerful force, both beautiful and dangerous, and its portrayal reflects the colonists' awe and struggle to adapt.
Years. It can be divided into five major periods, each of which has unique characteristics, notable authors, and representative works. The first European settlers of North America wrote about their experiences starting in the 1600s. This was the earliest American literature, practical, straightforward, often derivative of literature in Great Britain, and focus on the future. In its earliest days, during the 1600s, American literature consisted mostly of the practical non-fiction written by British settlers and who populated the colonies that would become eventually United States. Here are some notable writers of the colonial period. First one is Captain John Smith. Captain John Smith was an adventurer, soldier, explorer, and author. Through telling the stories of his early time, we can trace the developments of a man who became a dominant force in the eventual success of Jamestown and the establishment of its legacy as the first permanent English settlement in the North America. John Smith was the first who wrote histories of Virginia based on his experiences as an English explorer and a president of the Jamestown colony. The histories published in 1608 and 1624 are among the earliest works of American literature. Captain John Smith's most important works include A True Relation of Virginia, 1608, The General History of Virginia, 1624, and A Map of Virginia, 1612. The next notable author of the colonial period was Annie Bradstreet. Annie Bradstreet was the first woman to be recognized as an accomplished New World poet. Her volume of the poetry, The Tenth Muse, lately sprung up in America, received considerable favorable attention when it was first published in London in 1650. Annie Bradstreet, The Tenth Muse, lately sprung up in America, 1650, may be the earliest collection of the poetry written in and about America, although it was published in England. Annie Bradstreet's most important work include The Tenth Muse, lately sprung up in America, 1650, and several poems compiled with great variety of wit and learning. Annie Bradstreet's poetry was primarily circulated among a limited audience, mainly family and friends. Her first collection of poems, The Tenth Muse, lately sprung up in America, was published without her knowledge or consent and received mixed responses. Some readers appreciated her skillful use of language and her ability to express deeply personal emotions, while others criticized her for engaging in public writing as a woman. The third notable writer of the colonial period was William Bradford. William Bradford was one of the original settlers of Plymouth colony after leaving England on the Mayflower in 1620. Bradford was influential in shaping Plymouth's government and became its governor in 1621. He went on to serve as a governor off and on for over 30 years. William Bradford's most important work include Of Plymouth Plantation, 1630s to 1651. Critics' views about the writers of the colonial period in terms of critical reception, and Annie Bradstreet's poetry gained more recognition and appreciation in later countries. In 19th and 20th centuries, literary scholars and critics began to recognize her as a significant figure in American literature. They praised her ability to combine personal experiences with broader theme, her exploration on inner conflict, and her skillful use of poetic forms. Today, William Bradford is often studied in academic setting as an important figure in early American literature. His writings are regarded as valuable first-hand account of the early colonial period, shedding light on the experience and struggles of the pilgrims. However, it's worth noting that modern critics tend to approach his work with a more critical lens, considering the biases and limitations of his perspective as a Puritan settler.
Your eyes held a message.